very first thing that I got of Dear Destiny upon finishing was that Tifa and Aerith are both incorrigibly, intensely devoted to both of their boys. Sorry, not sorry. And there's several questions that you will have the answers to, such as, will Aerith ever get over Zack? Or does Aerith ever get over Zack? Well, not completely. And does Tifa think about Cloud when she's busy repaying her debts and running Seventh Heaven and rebuilding her life? Of course she does. So let's dive right into this juicy book written by none other than Kazushige Nojima, who happens to just be the writer of Final Fantasy VII, so it doesn't get more official than this. Several people on X were gracious enough to, of course, share their Japanese translator abilities with the fandom and have translated several summaries and portions of the book, such as Yoki and Paval. Kind of writing off of where Traces of Two Pasts left off, Tifa's portion of the novel follows her days at the bar and her meeting other people and leading up to the part where she finds Cloud at the train station. Her portion of the novel is a good example of how her personality works when interacting with others. She's not one to always reveal what's locked deep inside her heart, of course. And in certain situations, this can be good, such as when she wants to hide things from people that are suspicious, or it could be maybe not the best thing, and it might hold her back from connecting with people on a deeper level. So starting off strong, Nojima makes it abundantly clear how Tifa sees Cloud as a boy who was special to her apart from all the other boys in Nibelheim. She didn't see them romantically at all. And in fact, Emilio shows up at the bar and kind of confronts her about her feelings. Oh, and he shows up with his girlfriend, no less. But he comes back the next day to ask her one-on-one which one of us, of the four fiends, mind you, did you like, me, Tyler, or Lester? Emilio shows up and he remarks how happy he is to see Tifa again, how happy he is to see that someone survived, Nibelheim. And he shows up with his girlfriend Lauren, who looks like someone who is, high class. Maybe she could be from the plate. And the next day, Emilio actually visits Tifa privately, and Emilio asks her with a mischievous look, so who do you like, Tifa? I mean, you knew Tyler, Lester, and me all liked you, right? Tifa was confused. She hadn't expected the question now. She had enjoyed spending time with all three of them, and those were good memories. But she didn't see any of them as a romantic interest. And here, Nojima is again making that distinction between the three fiends and Cloud Strife. Tifa was at a loss for words. Looking at her, he nodded slightly several times. Do you remember that I said I would come to pick you up when I left the village? Yeah, I remember. Seeing that troubled look on your face back then, I was in despair. I realized I'm not the one you like. It was because your family was right there. You said that in front of everyone, so she had made that face. It wasn't to hide romantic feelings. There weren't any to begin with. Oh, I've made you make that face again, Emilio said, straightening his back. That's okay. Back then, my whole world was Nibelheim. Within that small world, it was just that you were the best girl to me. Emilio let out a sigh as he rattled the ice in his glass. He suddenly realized he had said something inappropriate and hurriedly apologized. Sorry, I just said something really rude. Haha, Tifa thought it was a good moment to change the subject. I love how Tifa barely has a reaction, and she's clearly uncomfortable, but she wants him to know, like, look, dude, I never liked you that way. So, yeah. Then she moves on to ask about Tyler, one of the other boys, who had joined Shinra as well, but Emilio said it had been a long time since he had left the company, so he didn't know much about him. But then Emilio brings up Cloud Strife and says, at Shinra, I also ran into him once. I called out to him, but he completely ignored me. Same attitude he had as a kid. Still a weirdo. Weirdo? Cloud Strife. You remember him, right? A lot happened back then. He lived right next door to you. Just then, Johnny came into the bar and took a seat at the counter. He ordered the cocktail that took the most effort to make. Who's Cloud? Johnny asked. He's a childhood friend, Tifa replied. Then he turned his body toward Emilio. And who are you? I'm Johnny, a regular here. I live just around the corner. Kind of a big deal in this neighborhood. So anyways, Emilio and Johnny chat back and forth, and Emilio then says that he'd like to talk to Tifa about something private and about his family's death, and he received documents from Shinra explaining what had actually happened to Nibelheim. Well, in the letter, Shinra says that monsters had emerged from the mountain, likely the Mako reactor, and attacked Nibelheim several times. They were using fire-based magic, and the villagers tried to fight back, but the village was completely destroyed. And then a rescue unit was dispatched, but no survivors were identified. So that is the story that was told by Shinra to the few survivors, or the people from Nibelheim that might be left. Tifa obviously doesn't remember that. She knows that's not true because Sephiroth was there and attacked her. Tifa thought, hey, Emilio doesn't really need to know the truth because, well, if he did, knowing it would change his life. But really, Tifa is... Here's the thing, she hides the information from Emilio, and she hides the information from Cloud. It seems that Tifa does this to protect people, not out of any sense of maliciousness, but perhaps because she herself cannot really handle the truth either, and really, it doesn't really want to confront the truth because, well, what can she really do about it? What can she really do? And I gotta commend Nojima on this one for portraying the sort of mixed emotions that Tifa's going through. She holds a lot within her from this very traumatic experience. It said Tifa had spoken about Nibelheim to only a handful of people so far, and she always found herself unable to remain calm. It wasn't only the pain of remembering the past, it was also the guilt of not wanting to remember it. And who could blame her, right? She carried anger and hatred within her, yet still allowed herself to enjoy her everyday life. And that filled her with guilt. The guilt of not fulfilling what she felt was the responsibility of those who had survived. But first of all, what does responsibility mean? The word revenge inevitably surfaced in her mind, and if revenge was truly the answer, then against whom should it be taken? Sephiroth was supposed to have died in the incident, so the Shinra Company? While she had joined the anti-Shinra group Avalanche, their goal was not revenge, but the protection of the planet's life. Fighting to protect the planet was not the same as fighting for revenge. So many emotions were tangled together inside her heart. So yes, Tifa's dealing with very complex feelings, and I feel like this is the reason why a lot of people misunderstand her, and they say, oh, she's such a bee for lying to Cloud, she's a coward for not being able to face her past, but, well, not every personality is the same. She literally holds, that trauma and that stress, that fear inside of her because she thinks that that's the best way to protect herself. And often, a lot of us, we keep things inside. I mean, I do that too. Not everyone knows everything about me. And so, in my mind, some things, you keep to yourself, or you might only share with like a select few close friends. But in Tifa's case, she doesn't really have anyone to talk to about this event in her life. Imagine that. Imagine losing your whole hometown, your family, and someone that you were in love with, that you wanted to see again, and it just all comes crashing down and gets ripped away from you, especially when that was all you knew. And you, for all intents and purposes, had a, pretty well-to-do life in that village. I don't think Tifa can be blamed for dealing with it as she has. She hasn't done anything bad. She just didn't really learn how to confront it until she really needed to. In Disc 3 of Final Fantasy VII, to save Cloud, to save his identity. Like, that was the moment where Tifa was pushed to be the heroine. We always knew that she was, or that she was born to be. Tifa has another traumatic dream, and in this one, Zangan appeared, teaching her exercise, and the mayor and his unfunny jokes her playing piano beside her mother, even Brian shouting at Cloud's mom, Claudia, and then Tifa telling her dad to stop it. Yeah, Brian Lockhart could be pretty cruel. When she returned to her room, she saw herself standing on the water tower outside the window. Their eyes met through the glass, so Tifa is looking at herself here. Tifa, 12 years old, was looking back at her with sad eyes. Is she already sensing what is about to happen to the village? Then everything around her was stained red. When she woke and got ready for the day, she felt the Nibelheim inside her growing larger day by day. I feel like that's an analogy for her hatred for Shinra and Sephiroth that is getting fed day by day with just the trauma inside of her and just Shinra killing innocents and, you know, what Avalanche wants to do, which is directly opposing Shinra. Yeah, Tifa's been suffering a lot inside, and this is what trauma does. I'm sure when it comes to trauma, some days, or in PTSD, some days are better than others, but then some days, you know, it comes back to you. It comes back. It's like healing is 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. And that's what Tifa's experiencing right now. And she's very young, but in spite of that, she's doing really well for herself. You know, all things considered, especially in the slums. Obviously, things are about to shake up her world a bit. So on a day when Tifa is worried about possibly buying some new furniture for her bar, Focus shows up, claiming to be an ex-member of Avalanche and claiming to have studied in Cosmo Canyon, referring to Tifa as if she knows that she and Barrett are part of Avalanche. And Tifa's like, whoa, I have no idea what you're talking about, because she doesn't want to give away the fact that Seventh Heaven is the Avalanche hideout. So she says, "Are you asking about Barrett?" Tifa replied. "He has the day off, and I don't understand what you're talking about. Barrett, me, this bar, we have nothing to do with Avalanche." "I understand. That is the only answer you can give. Then give this to Barrett." He held out an envelope sealed tightly with wax. "It contains instructions for making bombs. This is not a metaphor. Let's literally blow up the Mako reactors. Boom." So she has no intention of taking it. She plays cool. But this is Tifa demonstrating a very good aspect to her personality to not let people have information so easily. I mean, she's not going to tell people about herself, much less give away the identity of her, Barrett, Jesse, and the rest of the crew, and put their lives in danger, put Marlene in danger. There's no way that that's going to happen, you know? So in this sense, Tifa's locked heart is an asset rather than something to be seen as weak. She's very good at being incognito. So anyways, throughout the story, a few more things happen, which maybe I shouldn't spoil for you all. And then towards the end of Tifa's story, as Jesse's preparing for their mission to bomb the Mako reactor, as they do in Final Fantasy VII, they needed one more person. There was a rumor going around that Shinra had killed a soldier who escaped from some facility, but the truth was that he was still alive, hiding in the slums with a giant sword on his back. Now, who does that remind us of? Obviously, when Tifa heard this, it brought Zack to mind, because he was the last person with the Buster Sword that she saw. But then Jesse added that it was a handsome blonde. So Tifa rushed out. She rushed out of the bar. She rushed out to find him. And this is how the story ends, according to this story summary, which I will link down below. But it is funny that, you know, whenever Cloud is mentioned, or whenever blonde hair is mentioned, it's like, it can only be Cloud. It can only be Cloud. And Tifa trips over herself to find him, because she loves him that much. I mean, it's not like she only became close to him the night at the tower, but it's like all her feelings really came to a head. And at first, you know, they were children, but their feelings were deep, and distance does make the heart grow fonder. So with all of this, undoubtedly, I mean, you could never question Tifa's feelings for him, and all of this is going to be nice to see in part 3, if most of it gets animated. it just makes me smile because Tifa's devotion is unmatched. I mean, we'll talk about Aerith soon enough, but Tifa is just so devoted to him, and not in a way where it's like she can't do or be anything without him, but it's almost like the thought of him keeps her going. Or even though she's independent and can survive by herself, she still wishes she had that special someone beside her. And I mean, all humans get lonely. Everyone feels like they want that last connection to their home or their culture or whatever else feels most familiar to them. So Tifa cannot be blamed. And it just makes her all the more human and makes her one of the best characters in Final Fantasy VII. Only rivaled by Cloud to me, but I think by part 3, she's really gonna take the crown for me, I'm afraid. Ah, Zerith. We didn't forget about you now. So Aerith's part in Dear Destiny, I'm gonna go ahead and work off these posts on X for the purposes of this video. Now, Aerith, her show of devotion is interesting because in her section we find out more about, some of her 89 letters. Not all 89, but some more of them within that 89. And the way that she's holding on to Zack in her own way, while Tifa has no choice but to move on from Cloud, even though she's still holding on to that trauma of Nibelheim inside and the hopes that, Cloud could still be around one day, maybe. With Zack and Aerith, they actually had the chance to date, and so Aerith is really feeling any separation she has from Zack strongly, and unlike Tifa, Aerith still has ways of getting to Zack as opposed to Tifa having any links to Cloud at all. Tifa doesn't really know anyone that knows of Cloud currently, but with Aerith, she's pretty hopeful that she has a link to Zack, be it with the Turks or by the fact that she hasn't sensed him return to the planet yet. So obviously, he must be alive somehow, and she really holds on to that hope in her letters. Now, there are people saying, that she should give up, basically, that she probably got dumped and that she should move on. But no, she still carries on in her own way. This was from the machine translation that Liana, Nights into Dreams on X, had provided. Aerith says she felt astonished, but at the same time intrigued by Zack. He gave off a different vibe than the people she had met up until then. Walking next to him made her feel uneasy. She felt both joy and anxiety. From that day on, Aerith's daily life changed. She helped with the housework, helped the staff at the local orphanage, and ran to church in the afternoon. From the outside, her days looked like the same old routine. However, when she opened the church door, the first thing her eyes spotted wasn't flowers, but Zack. She was really into Zack. That's a non-negotiable right there. Now here's something that I really love that describes why Aerith fell for Zack. Because a lot of people criticize Aerith's portrayal in Crisis Core. That was the first time we saw them falling in love. But because it was a game on the PSP, on the PlayStation Portable, the game was limited on how much time it could spend telling a story, okay? It wasn't like now with Remake or Rebirth. You couldn't just have all these cutscenes dedicated to Zack and Aerith. Like, you had just enough, but you didn't have it from Aerith's point of view. A lot of it was spent on Sephiroth, Angiogenesis, and the plight of being a soldier, and also what Zack was going through there. But you didn't really have as much time to spend on love. And so I love these books because we get the point of view from the women so clearly. When one of her friends, Miss Tsubaki, asked Aerith about Zack, she replied that he was a completely different type from her. He has something that I don't have. I fall in love with people who have that. So, to me, Aerith, going back to Crisis Core, she wasn't OOC or out of character. It's just that she hadn't fully blossomed yet. She was still young, and when she meets Zack, when she meets Zack, he's this really young, energetic, peppy sort of guy. The shonen hero archetype. He's just, for all intents and purposes, just like the perfect guy. So, Zack really influences her for the better. they're both a special type of people, and they both feel lonely in certain ways. So whenever people try to say, oh, like Cloud and Aerith are perfect for each other because one is a Cetra and one is someone who felt isolated from his peers in Village, it's like, no, actually Zack felt isolated too in Shinra because he was a genuinely good person, and he didn't join Shinra to be some type of killing machine. His naivete thought, okay, I want to join and be a hero, you know? Because, like, what young kid wouldn't want that? He wanted to protect people. He didn't want to be used as a weapon for Shinra's deeds. And he didn't want to have to fight and kill his friends. He didn't want to have to experience his friends turning on him. Like, you know, Sephiroth's betrayal was such a big thing. And Geo, in a sense, Zack was just as pure of a soul as Aerith was. And to those who say, oh, like Zack was this playboy sort of character, he didn't really care about Aerith, you are so wrong, and this book proves it. For example, here's a passage of one of their interactions. Are you that worried about me? Well, duh, there's only one Aerith in the world. That makes you special. Hearing that, Aerith was surprised. She was a Cetra, one of the ancients, but she had never told Zack about that. But thinking on it, it would have been strange for him not to know. You know, huh? I know. Zack looked confused. Oh, the Cetra thing. I mean, yeah, I heard, but I meant something else. It's like, you know. Zack suddenly stopped speaking. He looked as if he wanted to say something, but the words didn't come out. His eyes darted from place to place. It wasn't like the usual Zack at all, and Aerith noticed. He was restless, and it was about what he just said. Are those his feelings for me? That I'm the only one in the world? That I'm special? It wasn't to the Shinra company. It wasn't to the world. He was speaking only to Zack. Zack, the sweetheart. The one that always cared about Aerith. The one who, in Rebirth, is in the live stream world, after life, is fighting to protect her still, is fighting to be with her, is fighting to be the best son-in-law ever. Zack, who at the end of Rebirth is still trying to find a way to be with her across worlds, is jealous that Aerith has feelings for Cloud. Zack wants to reunite so badly with her, no matter what, from the beginning until the end. Her unchanging daily routine with each day connected to the last. It was as if fate was a vehicle that she was riding with Zack. And although she was alone for now, she hoped to reunite with him along the road. Didn't Zack say something about worlds coming together, but so too do they part? Now, is Zack popular with the ladies? That's a fact that was never denied or was never changed. But what's Zack's view on Aerith's jealousy? You know, I'm pretty popular with girls. Is that so? Jealous? Were you trying to make me? Not exactly, but... Well, I am, and I don't like feeling that way. It makes me sad and lonely. Wait, really? I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. See, and this is great because Zack acknowledges her feelings, which is so important in a relationship, especially one that young, and especially one that feels so ephemeral, I guess. Not really ephemeral, but one that feels that it should have gone on for much longer, and Zack is apologetic. I mean, he's not meaning to make her jealous, but he feels bad. And we know that she's the only one who's special to him, so I thought that was a great touch, because it's like Nojima saw all the bad takes online about Zack and Aerith's relationship over the years and decided to, one by one, obliterate them all. And at one point, when dealing with the reunion flower, or with her flower, she is starting to sell her flowers around town, and one of the shopkeepers told her, the flower is just like you said, and he went to open a door on the side of his stall. The moment he disappeared from view, Aerith left the store as quickly as possible. I'm sorry, reunions were for her and Zack. She didn't want to consider anything else. I mean, this is so huge because reunions, as you know, are such a big theme in Remake and Rebirth, and It's a recurring theme with like Leslie and his girlfriend, Tifa and Cloud, and now Zack and Aerith. But we knew this. So to have it reinstated in Dear Destiny is just chef's kiss, obviously. Something that one of the translators, Yoki, pointed out I thought was very cool about the distinction between the two types of love in Japanese, ai and koi. Basically, the distinction between like puppy love and a more mature, enduring kind of love. I think that koi is a feeling directed straight towards someone romantically, whereas ai involves devotion. With deeper emotions, the desire to protect and support the other person before thinking about your own feelings. It's the wish to value the other person above yourself. In that sense, I might say that koi tends to be somewhat immature and is often seen in the early stages of a romantic relationship, or when feelings are still unrequited. As these feelings mature, they can gradually become ai. In Dear Destiny, a man named Conrad took care of Adelia, Soldier's Class 2nd, who suffered degradation and fled from Shinra, and he had feelings for her. He kept talking to her, believing the treatment will work, but she hardly responded. He suffers from the hopeless situation with no hope of recovery, even turning to alcohol to distract himself. After hearing this, his friend gave the advice, koi is painful, so learn ai as soon as possible, but he didn't understand what she meant. In the end, Adelia was placed under Shinra's care for treatment, but he didn't resist. According to Tsung, he accepted it with a relieved expression. To me, this just shows how much mental strain he had endured up to that point, and at the same time it indicates that his feelings remained koi, not ai. And it also suggests that how devotedly Tifa protected and kept taking care of Cloud in Mideel, even in a hopeless situation that would make an ordinary person want to run away. It was because of her ai towards him. About Tifa's feelings, Yoki says, I think at first, at their reunion, they were koi. Then they gradually evolved into ai, especially after Gongaga. Then they were fully ai in Mideel. Cloud may have felt koi for Tifa at first, but seeing her fall from the cliff, wanting to become strong enough to protect her, and wishing to help her even when his true self was in danger in the livestream, after he had learned that he was not a soldier, as he says on the Highwind Night, all of this shows that his desire to protect Tifa, ai, ran deep from an early age. So, kind of related to this, but I believe it was Conrad in the story who says, in Aerith's portion, that says that the cure for soldier degradation is actually love, devotion, friendship even, just any form of love, I believe. And this is actually brand new information because we didn't know this in the Final Fantasy VII universe. It's very sweet, and it does make sense to me because even when someone is on the brink of death or about to die, they usually, if they're in hospice, right, if it's a family member that's almost ready to go, sometimes they'll wait for their children or relatives to show up to fully say goodbye. So I think that love in general is a really powerful force, and I love that love is being so emphasized in Final Fantasy VII because it is a part of life. It is an aspect of life. It's not the main focus of Final Fantasy VII, but since Final Fantasy VII is about life and this circle of life and how life flows, you cannot forget about this unavoidable aspect of life that fuels everything, because without life, there's death. And what is death? I mean, death is really, it's neutral, but also if you are just consumed by hate, like Sephiroth is, you just want to take all life away from a planet like Genova and just suck all life out of it and just consume the planet. You know, that it relates to hatred and negativity, and you can't grow. At least with love, you can keep the world going, life flowing, the planet continuing on, flourishing, so that it all directly links to what? To love. Speaking of love, here's some more letters, some more sweet letters from Aerith. How are you? There's a place for you in my heart. It's a special place. I meet all kinds of people every day, but that place belongs to you. Is there a place for me in your heart too? Just aw. Like, just aw. And here's another one. How are you? Someone asked me today if we broke up. I said it's just been a while since we've seen each other, but it didn't hurt to say that. It wasn't painful. I just feel sad. My feelings are slowly changing. I wonder what that means. It feels like the inevitability of knowing that, you won't see the person again. And in her situation, she doesn't really know what's going on, but she knows that she does have to move on, even though she doesn't want to. So, yes, to everyone who says, Aerith is allowed to move on, she's allowed to fall in love with Cloud, she's allowed to like someone else. Yes, that's true. But that would have never happened if Zack wasn't torn away from her, if fate, if destiny rather, didn't tear Zack and Aerith away from each other, because they loved each other purely. And most of Aerith's attraction to Cloud came from Zack. And I'm so thankful to this book because it re-emphasizes what we know from the game itself, from the Ultimanias, from Remake and Rebirth, about how the Zack in Cloud is what's clinging on to Aerith's memories, past attraction to Zack, because she misses him. And it's like, yeah, maybe Aerith does need therapy, because what the hell, like, anyone would after this. I really have a lot of empathy for Aerith here. I mean, she's just like anyone else who's heartbroken and confused, and it's her first love, so of course she's going to be writing 89 letters and writing diary entries and going through all the feelings without knowing how to manage them, but just kind of coping, And how did Aerith learn how to fight anyway? Well, this book answers that question. She is gifted her weapon from Sung of the Turks, and she learns how to use magic. She casts a blizzard spell so many times at the beginning of her materia usage that she becomes lightheaded. She tells Zack about it. How are you? Hey Zack, listen, I think I'm getting stronger. I'm starting to feel like I can face anything that comes my way. I don't need to run because I can handle it head on. I've got my rod, my materia, and my magic. And my courage. I'm surprised that I feel like this. So Aerith transitions from the weak little Cetra that needs protecting to someone that can fight a monster or two. This sounds a lot and mirrors a lot the way that Cloud, after he leaves, Tifa starts exercising with Zangan, starts learning martial arts with him. I mean, at this point, Cloti and Zerith are more similar than they are different, or share enough similarities rather than differences to where I can say, like, yeah, these couples actually are mirrors to each other in a sense, but it's done in such a way where it's not super overt. Obviously, Aerith had a different upbringing than Tifa, so it's going to be different. Their personalities are different, but I just love the way that Dojima is linking the two couples to each other and linking both couples together, because they are the two canon couples. And if you ever had any doubts, this book was like hook, line, and sinker. This book was like, you doubted me? Bet. Let me show you what you're missing. Let me show you what is coming up. And most importantly, let me show you what is coming up in part 3. Because this, ladies and gents, is the precursor, okay? So get ready. Now, this was a particularly interesting thing that Paval pointed out in one of her posts about Aerith's section. She said, Aerith is amazed, and I'm not going to translate this directly, but Almyra basically says word for word what the Japanese no promises to keep lyrics are about, down to talking about the city meeting and parting and meeting again aren't destiny, they're wonderful coincidences. Which doesn't surprise me, because No Promises to Keep is Aerith's song. I don't believe it's a love song just talking about her and Cloud. Nojima said it wasn't. If he's now referencing his lyrics to the song, referencing it to meeting and parting again, Aerith's people in her life, it's definitely more of at least a Zerith song more than anything, or an Aerith song. A general Aerith song more than anything. But who was most important to her? Well, let's think. Elmyra says to her daughter, it's not your past, your heritage, or your future, destiny, that's stopping you. It's yourself. So then Aerith writes more letters to Zack. How are you? Today, Mom told me that the person standing in my way is myself. I guess to her it looks like that. She told me before that I was going in circles, doing the same thing every day. I thought that if I did that, I could see you again. I thought that if I went to our special place, that we'd meet again. At our place, know that you'll find me. Promises to keep. And then, at the end of Rebirth, during the dream date sequence, Aerith talks about our place to Cloud. Well, it's not their place, that's the whole point. It's her and Zack's place, right? How are you? Coincidences can keep coming and coming, but it's not like they become destiny. Destiny binds me. Just like Conrad is bound to Adelia in the name of destiny, I'm the one who's bound to myself. She's bound to herself and her love for Zack, her wanting to meet him again. Conrad is bound to Adelia because he liked her. And then, from what I understood, she was in Soldier and then she got Mako poisoning, so he vowed to take care of her. And Conrad was the owner of a bakery that Aerith eventually became like a business partner with. At one point, she gets the opportunity, if you can call it that, to speak to mad scientist Hojo on a phone call, and he tells her that, of course, Zack is alive when she asks him, and that, or what kind of scientist does she take him for? And, of course, this makes her very happy, so she euphorically decides to go up to the plate. And that is that for her portion. Poor Aerith. It's funny because she has this hope that Zack is alive. And yet in the end, who does she meet with the Buster Sword? She meets Cloud while selling flowers. So in a sense, she does reunite with Zack, but not in the way she thought she would. It's like when you wish for something, or when you pray for something, right? I mean, I'm personally not religious, but if you want to manifest something, sometimes when you do it, like she was praying every day and writing letters, in a sense manifesting for herself, right? Sometimes when you do that, you get what you want, but maybe not in the form you wanted, or maybe you should have been more specific with what you wanted, because maybe that it comes with something that you're not prepared to handle. So yes, Zack came back to her, but it wasn't really Zack. And in the end of Rebirth, she acknowledges this, that liking and liking, they're two different things. So, with all that's come out, you ask, Tana, like, is everyone reacting normally? Is the fan base happy about this? And one could say that, like, I feel as if most of the fan base is happy. Well, at least the Cloti fan base and the Zerith fan base are pretty happy with what we got. Can everyone act completely normal about the books Nojima puts out? Well, not everyone can act completely normal about it. For example, here's a post, completely anonymous, by the way. Criticize the post or the thought, not the person, right? For example, here's someone that wasn't happy with the book. And that's fair. We're all entitled to our points of view and our perceptions. But it gets to a point where you feel like, well, why is this person continuing to be a fan? Or like, how is this person even looking forward to part 3, right? If they feel like this. So here's the post. I'm exhausted. The new novel is just what I expected, more pandering to the masses instead of staying true to the story. If this is the glimpse of what's coming on part 3, then I have no hope anymore. They're dead set on making Aerith and Zack a thing. Can someone explain to me their thought process? Because I'm at my wit's end right now. Well, first of all, Zack and Aerith were already a thing since Final Fantasy VII. Yes, it wasn't until the international version where you could see the secret cutscene of Zack and Cloud outside of Midgar. But even with Advent Children and Last Order, like, Zack was already growing into a more important figure. And Zack and Aerith walk off into the light in Advent Children. Now, the Ultimanias notwithstanding, this was pretty obvious cinematic language. And to say nothing of Crisis Core, I mean, and that was in 2007. It's been a long time since then, and with Remake and Rebirth clearing up any misconceptions, I think it's safe to say that the direction and the writing on the wall has been clear for years now, at least for a decade now. So if you're holding out hope for there to be a different outcome, maybe this isn't the game for you. Maybe this isn't the story for you. I mean, it's okay to not like it. You don't have to like Zack and Aerith. You don't have to like Cloud and Tifa. But for those of us that do enjoy it, I don't believe it's pandering to the masses. I believe it's just being faithful to the story that was already told since 1997. Well, I'm not one to disappoint, so there's more where that came from. I will forever hate Square if they didn't do justice to the original heroine. Seriously, what's the point of hyping Claire if they are so scared of Clotis and can't follow their original shit? To be frank, a lot of Clotis are absolute batshit mental. Kojima probably fears for his life. He'll have to wear full body armor when part 3 comes out. That's true, but thankfully Japan is mostly Clarith, and it's mostly the Western fans who are so extreme. I guess we know why Tifa is so popular in America. Lots of Italian Americans, lol. You know, it's been a long-standing myth that Clarith is more popular in Japan just because of this myth of Japanese culture being more pure. When we all know that's a lie. Japanese people still bleed red like the rest of us. Japanese people still have relations like the rest of us. Just because they go about it in a different way doesn't mean anything. I mean, people like Tifa more, people like Cloti more because it makes more sense. I mean, not that liking Tifa makes more sense. Well, And about Clotis being batshit mental, I mean,
I would say I'm pretty chill.
like, if Aerith and Cloud had kissed in Rebirth, I would have admitted defeat. I would at least have said, you know, I guess there is something to it. I guess I was wrong all these years. Like, I'll consider them equal to Cloud and Tifa. But no, Cloud and Tifa can kiss on their date. Cloud and Tifa almost kiss in front of Aerith, practically. So that's 2 times Cloud and Tifa basically kiss, right? With Cloud and Aerith being a 0. I mean, again, if Cloud and Aerith kissed, I wouldn't necessarily like it, but I wouldn't go batshit mental, as this person's saying. Um, Most of us fans are well into adulthood, and there's really nothing to get mental about. I mean, I love this video game, I love these characters, but I have a whole life outside of them. I love making videos for things that I enjoy, for my interests, such as Cloud and Tifa. If Cloti was not canon, I'd have to move on with my life. I couldn't stay here and be belligerent about everything. So if this is a taste of what part 3 is going to bring, well, so be it. I mean, it's not the first time people have gotten upset over ships. So if this is what people tell themselves, that's fine. I mean, part of grief is bargaining, so whatever. Do you agree? Are Clotis batshit mental? Was Dear Destiny pretty awesome or what? Comment down below, let me know, and if you can, subscribe. I would appreciate it very much. Thank you. You guys are awesome. Bye-bye.